Welcome to the Midday Meltdown Party Over Here with J&J Video.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the day after Thanksgiving, and hopefully you guys are having an awesome one. Get your coffee, kick your feet up, and get ready to listen to the subtle art of not giving a you know what. I want to send a shout out to the love of my life, Vegan Knowledge JJ. She made us a wonderful, wonderful vegan Thanksgiving. She had all kinds of Gardein meat. She had white meat that was like these chicken strips that are vegan, but they tasted just like chicken strips, guys. I'm telling you, any of you that want to become vegan or have been considering it or transferring at least slowly into a plant-based diet, you need to check my sweetheart out, Vegan Knowledge JJ. We're going to put the YouTube link. And you know what? I'm sorry. I'm still food drunk. I did not put the link in yesterday's video. In fact, I didn't put any links in yesterday's video. I'm a work in progress. Okay. I'm still trying to build this thing. So they will be put in there today while we're listening to the book. I'll be working on that and listening to the book at the same time. And I will put Jen's link if you are considering. Go to her channel, watch some of her videos. They are phenomenal. And subscribe to her channel, and watch. She has a show that she does called The Amazing Transformations. All right. And she does testimonials with people who come on her show, and she interviews who have literally changed their lives by switching to a plant-based diet. She's had people on there that are in the process of curing MS, that have gotten over heart disease and reversed it. She works with me on a daily basis on reversing the blindness that I'm experiencing. And I feel wonderful. So thank you, Jen. I love you. And yesterday's dinner was absolutely wonderful. I am going to, let's go to the chat overlay. I see we don't have anybody in there just yet. People are probably still food drunk and left over from yesterday. But shout out to all of the people who come to the channel and listen to the mental gems that we drop and we listen to. We listen to audiobooks. We listen to we react to reality TV, games, sporting events, you name it, music. It's called Party Over Here, which means we have ear parties over here. If you can hear it, we're going to listen to it. We're going to rock out to it. So this week it happens to be the book by Mark Manson, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And I'm telling you, the book has already changed so much in my life this week. And I am grateful to Mark for even writing the book. Shout out to DZ. DZ is normally on here with me, and I have not spoken to him as of yet this morning. So I don't know if he's going to be joining us later, possibly, maybe not. But if not, wherever you are, DZ, shout out to you, my brother. Shout out to Flight Sports TV, Dexterious Crockett, Uncle Vern, Anthony King, Blunt Dog. You guys are phenomenally awesome. I love you guys. And those are my regulars that show up in my chat and give me all the support that I need. If you're listening, hey, do me a favor, click the like button, subscribe if you're feeling the vibe, and please share on all, if you care, only if you care, on all forms of social media. Drop a like, drop a dislike. I don't care. Either way, it moves the algorithm. So you know how the algorithm it is at YouTube. So without further ado, I'm going to get Mark Manson started, And it is, don't forget, it is the art of the subtle art of not giving a fuck. I'm still waking up, guys. I haven't had my placebo coffee yet.
Welcome to the Midday Meltdown Party Over Here with J&J Video.
Our mind's biggest priority processing experiences is to interpret them in such a way that they will cohere with all of our previous experiences, feelings, and beliefs. But often we situations where past and present don't cohere. On such occasions, what we're experiencing in the moment
I think
flies in the
YouTube needs
face of
some coffee
everything we've
too.
accepted as true and reasonable about our past.
All right, Mark, you all good, bro?
In an effort to achieve coherence, our mind will sometimes, in
Shout out
cases
to
like
Vegan
that,
Knowledge. I see you
invent
over there in
false
the chat,
memories.
honey. Good morning.
By linking our present experiences with that imagined past, our mind allows us to maintain whatever meaning we already established. As noted earlier, Meredith's story is not unique. In fact, in the 1980s and early 1990s, hundreds of innocent people were wrongly accused of sexual violence under similar circumstances. Many of them went to prison for it. For people who were dissatisfied with their lives, these suggestive explanations, combined with the sensation media, there were veritable epidemics of sexual satanic violence going on, and you could be a victim too, gave people's unconscious minds the incentive to fudge their memories a bit and explain their current suffering in a way that allowed them to be victims and avoid responsibility. Repressed memory therapy then acted as a means to pull these unconscious desires out and put them into a seemingly tangible form of a memory. This process and the state of mind it resulted in became so common that a name was introduced for it: false memory syndrome. It changed the way courtrooms operate. Thousands of therapists were sued and lost their licenses. Repressed memory therapy fell out of practice and was replaced by more practical methods. Recent research has only reinforced the painful lesson of that era. Our beliefs are malleable and our memories are horribly unreliable. There's a lot of conventional wisdom out there telling you to trust yourself, to go with your gut, and all sorts of other pleasant-sounding cliches. But perhaps the answer is to trust yourself less. After all, if our hearts and minds are so unreliable, maybe we should be questioning our own intentions and motivations more. If we're all wrong time, then isn't self-skepticism and the rigorous challenging of our own beliefs and assumptions the only logical route to progress? This may sound scary and self-destructive, but it's actually quite the opposite. It's not only the safer option, but it's liberating as well. The dangers of pure certainty. Erin sits across from me at the sushi restaurant and tries to explain why she doesn't believe in death. It's been almost 3 hours and she's eaten exactly 4 cucumber rolls and drunk an entire bottle of sake by herself. In fact, she's about halfway through bottle number 2 now. It's 4 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon. I didn't invite her here. She found out where I was via the internet and flew out to come find me. Again. She's done this before. You see, Erin is convinced that she can cure death, but she's also convinced that she needs my help to do it. But not my help in like a business sense. If she just needed some PR advice or something, that would be one thing. No, it's more than that. She needs me to be her boyfriend. Why? After 3 hours of questioning and a bottle and a half of sake, it still isn't clear. My fiancé was with us in the restaurant, by the way. Erin thought it important that she be included in the discussion. Erin wanted her to know that she was willing to share me and that my girlfriend, now wife, shouldn't feel threatened by her. I met Erin at a self-help seminar in 2008. She seemed like a nice enough person. A little bit on the woo-woo, new agey side of things, but she was a lawyer and had gone to an Ivy League school and was clearly smart. And she laughed at my jokes and thought I was cute, so of course, knowing me, I slept with her. A month later, she invited me to uproot across the country and move in with her. This struck me as somewhat of a red flag, and so I tried to break things off with her. She responded by saying that she would kill herself if I refused to be with her. Okay, so make that two red flags. I promptly blocked her from my email and all my devices. This would slow her down, but not stop her. Years before I met her, Erin had gotten into a car accident and nearly died. Actually, she had medically died for a few moments. All brain activity stopped. But she had somehow miraculously been revived. When she came back, she claimed everything had changed. She became a very spiritual person. She became interested in and started believing in energy healing and angels and universal consciousness and tarot cards. She also believed that she had become a healer and an empath, and that she could see the future. And for whatever reason, upon meeting me, she decided that she and I were destined to save the world together, to cure death, as she put it. After I blocked her, she began to create new email addresses, sometimes sending me as many as a dozen angry emails in a single day. She created fake Facebook and Twitter accounts that she used to harass me, as well as people close to me. She created a website identical to mine and wrote dozens of articles claiming that I was her ex-boyfriend and that I had lied to her and cheated her, that I had promised to marry her and that she and I belonged together. When I contacted her to take the site down, she said that she would take it down only if I flew to California to be with her. This was her idea of a compromise. And through all of this, her justification was the same. I was destined to be with her, that God had preordained it, that she literally woke up in the middle of the night to the voices of angels commanding that our special relationship was the harbinger of a new age of permanent peace on earth. Yes, she really told me this. By the time we were sitting in that sushi restaurant together, there had been thousands of emails. Whether I responded or didn't respond, replied respectfully or replied angrily, nothing ever changed. Her mind never changed. Her beliefs never budged. This had gone on for over 7 years by then, and counting. And so it was, in that small sushi restaurant, with Erin guzzling sake and babbling for hours about how she'd cured her cat's kidney stones with energy tapping, that something occurred to me. Erin is a self-improvement junkie. She spends tens of thousands of dollars on books and seminars and courses. And the craziest part of all this is that Erin embodies all the lessons she's learned to a T. She has her dream. She stays persistent with it. She visualizes and takes action and weathers the rejections and failures and gets up and tries again. She's relentlessly positive. She thinks pretty damn highly of herself. I mean, she claims to heal cats the same way Jesus healed Lazarus. Come the fuck on. And yet her values are so fucked that none of this matters. The fact that she does everything right doesn't make her right. There is a certainty in her that refuses to relinquish itself. She has even told me this in so many words, that she knows her fixation is completely irrational and unhealthy and is making both her and me unhappy. But for some reason, it feels so right to her that she can't ignore it and she can't stop. In the mid-1990s, psychologist Roy Baumeister began researching the concept of evil. Basically, he looked at people who do bad things and at why they do them. At the time, it was assumed that people did bad things because they felt horrible about themselves. That is, they had low self-esteem. One of Baumeister's first surprising findings was that this was often not true. In fact, it was usually the opposite. Some of the worst criminals felt pretty damn good about themselves. And it was this feeling good about themselves, in spite of the reality around them, that gave them the sense of justification for hurting and disrespecting others. For individuals to feel justified in doing horrible things to other people, they must feel an unwavering certainty in their own righteousness, in their own beliefs and deservedness. Racists do racist things because they're certain about their genetic superiority. Religious fanatics blow them up and murder dozens of people because they're certain of their place in heaven as martyrs. Men rape and abuse women out of their certainty that they're entitled to women's bodies. Evil people never believe that they are evil. Rather, they believe that everyone else is evil. In controversial experiments, now simply known as the Milgram Experiments, named for the psychologist Stanley Milgram, Researchers told normal people that they were to punish other volunteers for breaking various rules. And punish them they did, sometimes escalating the punishment to the point of physical abuse. Almost none of the punishers objected or asked for explanation. On the contrary, many of them seemed to relish the certainty of the moral righteousness bestowed upon them by experiments. The problem here is that not only is certainty unattainable, but the pursuit of certainty often breeds more and worse insecurity. Many people have an unshakable certainty in their ability at their job or in the amount of salary they should be making. But that certainty makes them feel worse, not better. They see others getting promoted over them and they feel slighted. They feel unappreciated and underacknowledged. Even a behavior as simple as sneaking a peek at your boyfriend's text messages or asking a friend what people are saying about you is driven by insecurity and that aching desire to be certain. You can check your boyfriend's text messages and find nothing. But that's rarely the end of it. Then you may start wondering if he has a second phone. You can feel slighted and stepped over at work to explain why you missed out on a promotion. But then that causes you to distrust your coworkers and second guess everything they say to you and how you think they feel about you, which in turn makes you even less likely to get promoted. You can keep pursuing that special someone you're supposed to be with, but with each rebuffed advance and each lonely night, you only begin to question more and more what you're doing wrong. And it's in these moments of insecurity, of deep despair, that we become susceptible to an insidious entitlement, believing that we deserve to cheat a little to get away, that other people deserve to be punished, that we deserve to take what we want and sometimes violently. It's the backwards law again. The more you try to be certain about something, the more and insecure you will feel. But the converse is true as well. The more you embrace being uncertain and not knowing, the more comfortable you will feel in knowing what you don't know. Uncertainty removes our judgments of others. It preempts the unnecessary stereotyping and biases that we otherwise feel when we see somebody on TV, in the office, or on the street. Uncertainty also relieves us of our judgment of ourselves. We don't know if we're lovable or not. We don't know how attractive we are. We don't know how successful we could potentially become. The only way to achieve these things is to remain uncertain of them and be open to finding them out through experience. Uncertainty is the root of all progress and all growth. As the old adage goes, the man who believes he knows everything learns nothing. We cannot learn anything without first not knowing something. The more we admit we do not know, the more opportunities we gain to learn. Our values are imperfect and incomplete. And to assume that they are perfect and complete is to put us in a dangerously dogmatic mindset that breeds entitlement and avoids responsibility. The only way to solve our problems is to first admit that our actions and beliefs up to this point have been wrong and are not. This openness to being wrong must exist for any real change or growth to take place. Before we can look at our values and prioritizations and change them into better, healthier ones, we must first become uncertain of our current values. We must intellectually strip them away, see their faults and biases, see how they don't fit in with much of the rest of the world, to stare our own ignorance in the face and concede. Because our own ignorance is greater than us all. Manson's law of avoidance. Chances are you've heard some form of Parkinson's law. Work expands so as to fill up the time available for its completion. You've also undoubtedly heard of Murphy's law. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. Well, next time you're at a swanky cocktail party and you want to impress somebody, try dropping Manson's law of avoidance on them. The more something threatens your identity, the more you will avoid it. That means the more something threatens to change how you view yourself, how successful or unsuccessful you believe yourself to be, how well you see yourself living up to your values, the more you will avoid ever getting around to doing it. There's a certain comfort that comes with knowing how you fit in the world. Anything that shakes up that comfort, even if it could potentially make your life better, is inherently scary. Manson's law applies to both good and bad things in life. Making $1 million could threaten your identity just as much as losing all your money. Becoming a famous rock star could threaten your identity just as much as losing your job. This is why people are often so afraid of success. For the exact same reason they're afraid of failure. It threatens who they believe themselves to be. You avoid writing that screenplay you've always dreamed of because doing so would call into question your identity as a practical insurance adjuster. You avoid talking to your husband about being more adventurous in the bedroom because that conversation would challenge your identity as a good, moral woman. You avoid telling your friend that you don't want to see him anymore because ending the friendship would conflict with your identity as a nice, forgiving person. These are good, important opportunities that we consistently pass up because they threaten to change how we view and feel about ourselves. They threaten the values that we've chosen and have learned to live up to. I had a friend who, for the longest time, talked about putting his artwork online and trying to make a go of it as a professional, or at least semi-professional artist. He talked about it for years. He saved up money. He even built a few different websites and uploaded his portfolio. But he never launched. There was always some reason. The resolution on his work wasn't good enough, or he had just painted something better, or he wasn't in a position to dedicate enough time to it yet. Years passed, and he never did give up his real job. Why? Because despite dreaming about making a living through his art, the real potential of becoming an artist nobody likes was far, far scarier than remaining an artist nobody's heard of. At least he was comfortable with and used to being an artist nobody's heard of. I had another friend who was a party guy, always going out drinking and chasing girls. After years of living the high life, he found himself terribly lonely, depressed, and unhealthy. He wanted to give up his party lifestyle. He spoke with a fierce jealousy of those of us who were in relationships and more settled down than he was. Yet he never changed. For years he went on, empty night after empty night, bottle after bottle. Always some excuse, always some reason he couldn't slow down. Giving up that lifestyle threatened his identity too much. The party guy was all he knew how to be. To give that up would be like committing psychological harakiri. We all have values for ourselves. We protect these values. We try to live up to them and we justify them in them. Even if we don't mean to, that's how our brain is wired. As noted before, we're unfairly biased toward what we already know, what we believe to be certain. If I believe I'm a nice guy, I'll avoid situations that could potentially contradict that belief. If I believe I'm an awesome cook, I'll seek out opportunities to prove that to myself over and over again. The belief always takes precedence. Until we change how we view ourselves, what we believe we are and are not, we cannot overcome our avoidance and anxiety. We cannot change. In this way, knowing yourself or finding yourself can be dangerous, cement you into a strict role and saddle you with unnecessary expectations. It can close you off to inner potential and outer opportunities. I say, don't find yourself. I say never know who you are, because that's what's keeping you striving and discovering. And it forces you to remain humble in your judgments and accepting of the differences in others. Kill yourself. Buddhism argues that your idea of who you are is an arbitrary mental construction, and that you should let go of the idea that you exist at all. That the arbitrary metrics by which you define yourself actually trap you, and thus you're better off letting go of everything. In a sense, you could say that Buddhism encourages you to not give a fuck. It sounds wonky, but there are some psychological benefits to this approach to life. When we let go of the stories we tell about ourselves, to ourselves, we free ourselves up to actually act and fail and grow. When someone admits to herself, maybe I'm not good at relationships, she is suddenly free to act and end her bad marriage. She has no identity to protect by staying in a miserable, crappy marriage just to prove something to herself. When a student admits to himself, maybe I'm not a rebel, maybe I'm just scared, then he's free to be ambitious again. He has no reason to feel threatened by pursuing his academic dreams and maybe failing. When the insurance adjuster admits to himself, Maybe there's nothing unique or special about my dreams or my job. Then he's free to give that screenplay an honest go and see what happens. I have both some good news and some bad news for you. There is little that is unique or special about your problems. That's why letting go is so liberating. There's a kind of self-absorption that comes with fear based on an irrational certainty. When you assume that your plane is the one that's going to crash, or that your project idea is the stupid one everyone is going to laugh at, or that you're the one everyone is going to choose to mock or ignore, you're implicitly telling yourself, I'm the exception. I'm unlike everybody else. I'm different and special. This is narcissism, pure and simple. You feel as though your problems deserve to be treated differently, that your problems have some unique math to them that doesn't obey the laws of the physical universe. My recommendation? Don't be special. Don't unique. Redefine your metrics in mundane and broad ways. Choose to measure yourself not as a rising star or an undiscovered genius. Choose to measure yourself not as some horrible victim or dismal failure. Instead, measure yourself by more mundane identities: a student, partner, a friend, a creator. The narrower and rarer the identity you choose for yourself, the more everything will seem to threaten you. For that reason, define yourself in the simplest and most ordinary ways possible. This often means giving up some grandiose ideas about yourself, that you're uniquely intelligent or spectacularly talented or intimidatingly attractive or especially victimized in ways other people could never imagine. This means giving up your sense of entitlement and your belief that you're somehow owed something by this world. This means giving up the supply of emotional highs that you've been sustaining yourself on for years. Like a junkie giving up the needle, you're going to go through withdrawal when you start giving these things up. But you'll come out the other side so much better. How to be a little less certain of yourself. Questioning ourselves and doubting our own thoughts and beliefs is one of the hard skills to develop, but it can be done. Here are some questions that will help you breed a little more uncertainty in your life. Question number 1. A friend of mine recently got engaged to be married. The guy who proposed to her is pretty solid. He doesn't drink, he doesn't hit her or mistreat her. He's friendly and has a good job. But since the engagement, my friend's brother has been admonishing her nonstop about her immature life choices, warning her that she's going to hurt herself with this guy, that she's making a mistake, that she's being irresponsible. And whenever my friend asks her brother, "What is your problem? Why does this bother you so much?" he acts as though there is no problem, that nothing about the engagement bothers him, that he's just trying to be helpful and look out for his little sister. But it's clear that something does bother him. Perhaps it's his own insecurities about getting married. Perhaps it's a sibling rivalry thing. Perhaps it's jealousy. Perhaps he's just so caught up in his own victimhood that he doesn't know how to show happiness for others without trying to make them feel miserable first. As a general rule, we're all the world's worst observers of ourselves. When we're angry or jealous or upset, we're oftentimes the last ones to figure it out. And the only way to figure it out is to put cracks in our armor of certainty by consistently questioning how wrong we might be about ourselves. Am I jealous? If I am, then why? Am I angry? Is she right and I'm just protecting my ego? Questions like these need to become a mental habit. In many cases, the simple act of asking ourselves such questions generates the humility and compassion needed to resolve a lot of our issues. But it's important to note that just because you ask yourself if you have the wrong idea doesn't necessarily mean that you do. If your husband beats the crap out of you for burning the pot roast and you ask yourself if you're wrong to believe he's mistreating you, well, sometimes you're right. The goal is merely to ask the question and entertain the thought at the moment, not to hate yourself. It's worth remembering that for any change to happen in your life, you must be wrong about something. If you're sitting there miserable day after day, then that means you're already wrong about something major in your life. And until you're able to question yourself to find it, nothing will change. Question number 2. What would it mean if I were wrong? Many people are able to ask themselves if they're wrong. but few are able to go the extra step and admit what it would mean if they were wrong. That's because the potential meaning behind our wrongness is often painful. Not only does it call into question our values, but it forces us to consider what a different, contradictory value could potentially look and feel like. Aristotle wrote, "It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it." Being able to look at different values without necessarily adopting them is perhaps the central skill required in changing one's own life in a meaningful way. As for my friend's brother, his question to himself should be, what would it mean if I were wrong about my sister's wedding? Often, the answer to such a question is pretty straightforward, and some form of "I'm being a selfish / insecure / narcissistic asshole." If he is wrong and his sister's engagement is fine and healthy and happy, there's really no way to explain his own behavior other than through his own insecurities and fucked up values. He assumes that he knows what's best for his sister and that she can't make major life decisions herself. He assumes that he has the right and responsibility to make decisions for her. He is certain that he's right and everyone else must be wrong. Even once uncovered, whether in my friend's brother or in ourselves, that sort of entitlement is hard to admit. It hurts. That's why few people ask the difficult questions. But probing questions are necessary in order to get at the core problems that are motivating his and our dickish behavior.
Dickish.
Question number 3. Would being wrong create a better or a worse problem than my current problem for both myself and others? This is the litmus test for determining whether we've got some pretty solid values going on, or we're totally neurotic fuckwads taking our fucks out on everyone, including ourselves. The goal here is to problem is better.
Fuckwad? Let's take a moment of silence for the word fuckwad. You gotta give it to me, man. I'm listening to a real one here. I'm listening to a real one.
Because after all, as Disappointment Panda said, life's problems are endless. My friend's brother, what are his options? A. Continue causing drama and friction within the family, complicating what should otherwise be a happy.
Shout out to DZ. I see you over there, my brother. I was off making coffee. Is that Uncle Vern? Hey, Uncle Vern. Trying to be consistent, baby. Trying to be consistent. Shout out to you. Shout out to DZ. Guys, thank you for showing up. Thank you for hanging out with me. Don't forget to smash that like button and share it on all forms of social media. Let the gang all know that we're here and we are listening out. And with that being said, I'm going to put Mark Manson back on. Shout out to you guys. Hopefully both of you had a wonderful Thanksgiving.
And damage the trust and respect he has with his sister, all because he has a hunch, some might call it an intuition, this guy is bad for her. B. Mistrust his own ability to determine what's right or wrong for his sister's life and remain humble. Trust her ability to make her own decisions, and even if he doesn't, live with the results out of his love and respect for her. Most people choose option A. That's because option A is the easier path. It requires little thought, no second guessing, and zero tolerance of decisions other people make that you don't like. It also creates the most misery for everyone involved. It's option sustains healthy and happy relationships built on trust and respect. It's option B that forces people to remain humble and admit ignorance. It's option B that allows people to grow beyond their insecurities and recognize situations where they're being impulsive or unfair or selfish. But option B is hard and painful, so most people don't choose it. My friend's brother, in protesting her engagement, entered into an imaginary battle with himself. Sure, he believed he was trying to protect his sister, but as we've seen, beliefs are arbitrary. Worse yet, they're often made up after the fact to justify whatever values and metrics we've chosen for ourselves. The truth is, he would rather fuck up his relationship with his sister than consider that he might be wrong, even though the latter could help him to grow out of the insecurities that made him wrong in the first place. I try to live with few rules, but one that I've adopted over the years is this. If it's down to me being screwed up or everybody else being screwed up, it is far, far, far more likely that I'm the one who's screwed up. I have learned this from experience. I have been acting out based on my own insecurities and flawed certainties more times than I can count. It's not pretty. That's not to say that there aren't certain ways in which most people are screwed up. And that's not to say that there aren't times when you'll be more right than most other people. That's simply reality. If it feels like it's you versus the world, chances are it's really just you versus yourself. Chapter 7. Failure is the way forward. I really mean it when I say it. I was fortunate. I graduated college in 2007, just in time for the financial collapse and Great Recession, and attempted to enter the worst job market in more than 80 years. Around the same time, I found out that the person who was subletting one of the rooms in my apartment hadn't paid any rent for 3 months. When confronted about this, she cried and then disappeared, leaving my other room and me to cover everything. Goodbye savings. I spent the next 6 months living on a friend's couch, stringing together odd jobs and trying to stay in as little debt as possible while looking for a real job. I say I was fortunate because I entered the adult world already a failure. I started out at rock bottom. That's basically everybody's biggest fear later on in life, when confronted with starting a new business or changing careers or quitting an awful job. And I got to experience it right out of the gates. Things could only get better. So yeah, lucky. When you're sleeping on a smelly futon and have to count coins to figure out whether you can afford McDonald's this week, and sent out 20 resumes without hearing a single word back, then doing a blog and a stupid internet, this doesn't sound like such a scary idea. If every project I started failed, if every post I wrote went unread, I'd only be back exactly where I started. So why not try? Failure itself is a relative concept. If my metric had been to become an anarcho-communist revolutionary, then my complete failure to make any money between 2007 and 2008 would have been a raving success. But if, like most people, my metric had been to simply find a first serious job that could pay some bills right out of school, I was a dismal failure. Family. Money was never a problem. On the contrary, I grew up in a wealthy family where money was more often used to avoid problems than solve them. I was again fortunate because this taught me at an early age that making money by itself was a lousy metric for myself. Plenty of money and be miserable, just as you could be broke and be pretty happy. Therefore, why use money as a means to measure my self-worth? Instead, my value was something else. It was freedom, autonomy. The idea of being an entrepreneur had always appealed to me because I hated being told what to do and preferred to do things my way. The idea of working on the internet appealed to me because I could do it from anywhere and work whenever I wanted. I asked myself a simple question. Would I rather make decent money and work a job I hated, or play an internet entrepreneur and be broke for a while? The answer was immediate and clear for me. The latter. I then asked myself, if I try this thing and fail in a few years and have to go anyway, will I have really lost anything? The answer was no. Instead of a broke and unemployed 22-year-old with no experience, I'd be a broke and unemployed 25-year-old with no experience. Who cares? With this value, to not pursue my own projects became the failure, not a lack of money, not sleeping on friends and family's couches, which I continued to do for most of the next 2 years, and not an empty resume. The failure/success paradox. When Pablo Picasso was an old man, he was sitting in a cafe in Spain, doodling on a used napkin. He was nonchalant about the whole thing, drawing whatever amused him in that moment, kind of the same way teenage boys draw penises on bathroom stalls. Except this was Picasso, so his bathroom stall penises were more like cubist/impressionist awesomeness laced on top of faint coffee stains. Anyway, some woman sitting near him was looking on in awe. After a few moments, Picasso finished his coffee and crumpled up the napkin to throw away as he left. The woman stopped him. "Wait," she said. "Can I have that napkin you were just drawing on? I'll pay you for it." "Sure," Picasso replied. $20,000. The woman's head jolted back as if he had just flung a brick at her. "What? It took you like 2 minutes to draw that." "No, ma'am," Picasso said. "It took me over 60 years to draw this." He stuffed the napkin in his pocket and walked out of the cafe. Improvement at anything is based on thousands of tiny failures, and the magnitude of your success is based on how many times you failed at something. If
Facts.
someone is better than you at something, then it's likely because she has failed at it more than you have. If someone is worse than you, it's likely because he hasn't been through all of the painful learning experiences you have. If you think about a young child trying to learn to walk, that child will fall down and hurt itself hundreds of times. But at no point does that child ever stop and think, "Oh, I guess walking just isn't for me. I'm not good at it." Avoiding failure is something we learn at some later point in life. I'm sure a lot of it comes from our education system, which judges rigorously based on performance and punishes those who don't do well. Another large share of it comes from overbearing, critical parents who don't let their kids screw up on their own often enough, and instead punish them trying anything new or not be ordained. And then we have all the mass media that constantly expose us to seller success after success, while not showing us the thousands of hours of dull practice and tedium that were required to achieve that success. At some point, most of us reach a place where we're afraid to fail, where we instinctively avoid failure and stick only to what is placed in front of us or only what we're already good at. This confines us and stifles us. We can be truly successful only at something we're willing to fail at. If we're unwilling to fail, then we're unwilling to succeed. A lot of this fear of failure comes from having chosen shitty values. For instance, if I measure myself by the standard, "make everyone I meet like me," I will be anxious because failure is 100% defined by the actions of others, not by my own actions. I am not in control. Thus, my self-worth is at the mercy of judgments by others. Whereas, if I instead adopt the metric, improve my social life, I can live up to my value of good relations with others, regardless of how other people respond to me. My self-worth is based on my own behaviors and happiness. Shitty values, as we saw in Chapter 4, involve tangible external goals outside of our control. The pursuit of these goals causes great anxiety. And even if we manage to achieve them, they leave us feeling empty, because once they're achieved, there are no more problems to solve. Values, as we saw, are process-oriented. Something like express myself honestly to others, a metric for the value honesty, is never completely finished. It's a problem that must continuously be re-engaged. Every new conversation, every new relationship brings new challenges and opportunities for honest expression. The value is an ongoing, lifelong process that defies completion. If your metric for the value success by worldly standards is buy a house and a nice car, and you spend 20 years working your ass off to achieve it, once it's achieved, the metric has nothing left to give you. Then say hello to your midlife crisis because the problem that drove you your entire adult life was just taken away from you. There are no other opportunities to keep growing and improving, and yet it's growth that generates happiness, not a long list of arbitrary achievements. In this sense, goals, as they are conventionally defined, graduate from college, buy a lake house, lose 15 pounds, are limited in the amount of happiness they can produce in our lives. They may be helpful when pursuing quick, short-term benefits, but as guides for the overall trajectory of our life, they suck. Picasso remained prolific his entire life. He lived into his 90s and continued to produce art up until his final years. Had his metric been become famous or make a buttload of money in the art or paint 1,000 pictures, he would have stagnated at some point along the way. He would have been overcome by anxiety or self-doubt. He likely wouldn't have improved and innovated his craft in the ways he did decade after decade. The reason for Picasso's success is exactly the same reason why, as an old man, he was happy to scribble drawings on a napkin alone in a cafe. His underlying value was simple and humble, and it was endless. It was the value honest expression. And this is what made that napkin so valuable. Pain is part of the process. In the 1950s, a Polish psychologist named Kazimierz Dabrowski studied World War II survivors and how they coped with traumatic experiences in the war. This was Poland, so things had been pretty gruesome. These people had experienced or witnessed mass starvation, bombings that turned cities to rubble, the Holocaust, the torture of prisoners of war, and the rape and or murder of family members, if not by the Nazis, then a few years later by the Soviets. As Dabrowski studied the survivors, he noticed something both surprising and amazing. A sizable percentage of them believed that the wartime experiences they had suffered, although painful and indeed traumatic, had actually caused them to become better, more responsible, and yes, even happier people. Many described their lives before the war as if they'd been different people then, unpoor and unappreciative of their loved ones, lazy and consumed by petty problems, entitled to what they'd been given. After the war, they felt more confident, more sure of themselves, more grateful and unfazed by life's trivialities and petty annoyances. Obviously, their experiences had been horrific, and these survivors weren't happy about having had to experience them. Many of them still suffered from the emotional scars the lashings of war had left on them. But some of them had managed to leverage those scars to transform themselves in positive and powerful ways. And they aren't alone in that reversal. For many of us, our proudest achievements come in the face of the greatest adversity. Our pain often makes us stronger, more resilient, more grounded. Many cancer survivors, for example, report feeling stronger and more grateful after winning their battle to survive. Many
Facts.
military personnel report a mental resilience gained from withstanding the dangerous environments of being in a war zone. Argued that fear and anxiety and sadness are not undeniable.
But with it also comes PTSD. At least for me, it did. You know what I mean? So you got to make sure that even though you feel victorious because you made it through, that you take some time to sit with yourself and realize, hey, yeah, I almost fucking died. And a lot of it was something that could have been mentally handled years ago. You know, you can't run from stuff. And that's what I did. I hightailed it. As soon as I found out that I was okay, I ran and never looked back. And since then, you know what I mean? While it's cool to not really delve into the medical world and allow yourself to get caught up in that spiral of, am I sick? Am I not sick? Let's test this. Let's test that. Oh, why does that feel that way? Is that a lump? Let's go test it out and get caught up in the system and have them running around in your head and prescribing you all kinds of shit. It's easier, in my opinion, to free your mind and stay away from all of that. However, it does come with, hey, am I sick and don't know it type shit. You know what I mean? So that was why when Jen decided to go full vegan, and we heard all of these stories about how people were healing themselves, and I got into the fact that the human body was was meant to heal itself. That in itself, it turned the fear into faith. I was allowing my faith to be stronger than my fear at that time. And I said, okay, well, now I've got something else to believe in instead of something to dwell on. The fact that the body cures itself and the fact that a plant-based diet and eliminating meat and dairy help the body to do that. Bingo, I had found my answer. I could stay out of the hospital system, but also at the same time assure myself of health by doing the things that I needed to do. I didn't know what to do to make sure that that didn't happen again. So thank you again, Jen, for encouraging me. I know I started that process with you, but you took it to the hill and now I'm following you with that. You know what I mean? You kept it up. and I saw the benefits of that, and I've seen other people go through it. So, I don't have to go to the hospitals and ask, hey, am I sick? No, I'm not sick, because I know how my body feels. And when I'm eating plant-based, it feels fine. So as long as I'm thinking I'm fine, guess what? Thoughts are real. Thoughts are things. Thoughts are reality. Perception is reality. If I think I'm healthy and I feel like I'm healthy, guess what? I'm healthy.
Desirable or unhelpful states of mind. Rather, they are often representative of the necessary pain of psychological growth. And to deny that pain is to deny our own potential.
Facts.
Just as one must
Don't run
suffer
from
physical pain to build stronger bone and muscle, one must suffer emotional pain to develop greater emotional resilience,
Talk to
a
them.
stronger sense of self, increased compassion, and a generally happier life. Our most radical changes in perspective often happen at the tail end of our worst moments. It's only when we feel intense pain that we're willing to look at our values and question why they seem to be failing us. We need some sort of existential crisis to take an objective look at how we've been deriving meaning in our life and then consider changing course. You could call it hitting bottom or having an existential crisis. I prefer to call it weathering the shitstorm. Choose what suits you. And perhaps you're in that kind of place right now. Perhaps you're coming out of the most significant challenge of your life and are bewildered because everything you previously thought to be true and normal and good has turned out to be the opposite. That's good. That's the beginning. I can't stress this enough, but pain is part of the process. It's important to feel it. Because if you just chase after highs to cover up the pain, if you continue to indulge in entitlement and delusional positive thinking, if you continue to overindulge in various substances or activities, then you'll never generate the requisite motivation to actually change. When I was young, anytime my family got a new VCR or stereo, I would press every button, plug and unplug every cord and cable, just to see what everything did. With time, I learned how the whole system worked. And because I knew how it all worked, I was often the only person in the house who used the stuff. As is the case for many millennial children, my parents looked on as if I were some sort of prodigy. To them, the fact that I could program the VCR without looking at the instruction manual made me the second coming of Tesla. It's easy to look back at my parents' generation and chuckle at their technophobia. But the further I get into adulthood, the more I realize that we all have areas of our lives where we're like my parents with the new VCR. We sit and stare and shake our heads and say, but how? When really it's as simple as just doing it. I get emails from people asking questions like this all the time, and for many years I never knew what to say to them. There's the girl whose parents are immigrants and saved for their whole lives to put her through med school. But now she's in med school and she hates it. She doesn't spend her life as a doctor, so she wants to drop out more than anything. Yet she feels stuck. So stuck, in fact, that she ends up emailing a stranger on the internet, me, and asking him a silly and obvious question like, how do I drop out of med school? Or the college guy who has a crush on his tutor. So he agonizes over every sign, every laugh, every smile, every diversion into small talk, and emails me a 28-page novella that concludes with the question, how do I ask her out? Or the single mother whose now adult kids have finished school, loafing around on her couch, eating her food, spending her money, not respecting her space or her desire for privacy. She wants them to move with their lives. She wants to move on with her life. Yet she's scared to death of putting her children away, scared to the point of asking, how do I ask them to move out? These are VCR questions. From the answer is simple, just shut up and do it. But from the inside, from the perspective of each of these people, these questions feel impossibly complex and opaque. Existential riddles and enigmas packed in a KFC bucket full of Rubik's cubes. VCR questions are funny because the answer appears difficult to anyone who has them and appears easy to anyone who's not. The problem here is pain. Without the appropriate paperwork to drop out of med school is a straightforward and obvious action. Breaking your parents' hearts is not. Asking a tutor out on a date is as simple as saying the words. Risking intense embarrassment and rejection feels far more complicated. Asking someone to move out of your house is a clear decision. Feeling as if you are abandoning your own children is not. I struggled with social anxiety throughout much of my adolescence and young adult life. I spent most of my days distracting myself with video games, and most of my nights either drinking or smoking away my uneasiness. For many years, the thought of speaking to a stranger, especially if that stranger happened to be particularly attractive or interesting or popular or smart, felt impossible to me. I went around in a daze for years asking myself dumb VCR questions. How? How can I talk to a person? How can somebody do that? I had all sorts of screwed up beliefs about this, like that you weren't allowed to speak to someone unless you had a reason to, or that women would think I was a creepy rapist if I so much as said, hello. The problem was that my emotions defined my reality. Because it felt like people didn't want to talk to me, I came to believe that people didn't want to talk to me. And thus, my VCR question, how do you just walk up and talk to a person? Because I failed to separate what I felt from what was, I was incapable of stepping outside myself and seeing the world for what it was, a simple place where two people can walk up to each other at any time and speak. Many people, when they feel some form of pain or anger or sadness, drop everything and attend to numbing out whatever they're feeling. Their goal is to get back to feeling good again as quickly as possible, even if it means substances or deluding themselves or returning to their shitty values. Learn to sustain the pain you've chosen. When you choose a new value, you are choosing to introduce a new form of pain into your life. Relish it, savor it, welcome it with open arms. Then act despite it. I won't lie. This is going to feel impossibly hard at first. You can start simple. You're going to feel as though you don't know what to do. But we've discussed this. You don't know anything. Even when you think you do, you really don't know what the fuck you're doing. So really, what is there to lose? Life is about not knowing and doing something anyway. All of life is like this. It never changes, even when you're happy. Even when you're farting fairy dust. Even when you win the lottery and buy a small fleet of jet skis, you still won't know what the hell you're doing. Don't ever forget that. And don't ever be afraid of that. The do something principle. In 2008, after holding down a day job for all of 6 weeks, I gave up the whole job thing to pursue an online business. At the time, I had absolutely no clue what I was doing, but I figured I was going to be broke and miserable. I might as well be while working on my own terms. And at that time, all I seemed to really care about was chasing girls. So fuck it, I decided to start a blog about my crazy dating life. The first morning that I woke up self-employed, terror quickly consumed me. I found myself sitting with my laptop and realized for the first time that I was entirely responsible for all of my own decisions, as well as the consequences of those decisions. I was responsible for teaching myself web design, internet marketing, search engine optimization, and other esoteric topics. It was all on my shoulders now. And so what any 24-year-old who'd just quit his job and had no idea what he was doing would do. I downloaded some computer games and avoided work like it was the Ebola virus. As the weeks went on and my bank account turned from black to red, it was clear that I needed to come up with some sort of strategy to get myself to put in the 12 or 14-hour days that were necessary to get a new business off the ground. And that plan came from an unexpected place. When I was in high school, my math teacher, Mr. Packwood, used to say, if you're stuck on a problem, don't sit there and think about it. Just start working on it. Even if you don't know what you're doing, the simple act of will eventually cause the right ideas to show up in your head. During that early self-employment period when I struggled every day, completely clueless about what to do and terrified of results or lack thereof, Mr. Packwood's advice started beckoning me from the recesses of my mind. I heard it like a mantra. Don't just sit there. Do something. The answers will follow. In the course of applying Mr. Packwood's advice, I learned a powerful lesson about motivation. It took about 8 years for this lesson to sink in, but what I discovered over those long, grueling months of bombed product launches laughable advice columns, uncomfortable nights on friends' couches, overdrawn bank accounts, and hundreds of thousands of words written, most of them unread, was perhaps the most important thing I've ever learned in my life. Action isn't just the effect of motivation. It's also the cause of it. Most of us commit to action only if we feel a certain level of motivation.
Facts.
And we feel motivation only when we feel enough emotional inspiration. We assume that these steps occur in a sort of chain action like this: emotional inspiration, motivation, desirable action. If you want to accomplish something but don't feel motivated or inspired, then you assume you're just screwed. There's nothing you can do about it. It's not until a major emotional life event occurs that you can generate enough motivation to actually get off the couch and do something. The thing about motivation is that it's not only a three-part chain, but an endless loop. Inspiration, motivation, action. Inspiration, motivation, action, etc.
That's how it works.
Your actions create further emotional reactions and inspirations and move on to motivate your future actions. Taking advantage of this knowledge, we can actually reorient our mindset in the following way: action, inspiration, motivation. If you lack motivation to make an important change in your life, do something, anything really, and then harness the reaction to that action as a way to begin motivating yourself. I call this the do something principle. After using it myself to build my business, I began teaching.
You know, there's another book that we're going to listen to on here called The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. And I don't know, maybe we can do that next week. I think next week I'm going to dedicate to financial freedom. Shout out to DZ. I want to start the week off Monday, DZ, with that stream that we were talking about. So get some thoughts together and some stuff over the weekend that you want to talk about and focus on. And Monday, let's do it, brother. We've been talking about it. Let's put it into action. Let's have that stream Monday where you're talking to us about some things that we can do to help our financial freedom. And from Tuesday on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that book, Secrets of a Millionaire Mind, divide it up I'll divide the hours up of that book between Tuesday through Friday, and we'll go ahead and listen to that section each day until it's done on Friday. And I think, man, I'm telling you, that book changed my life. When I started, and that was one of the first books, that may have been the first book that I ever listened to subliminally. And that's how I knew that stuff was working, because not long after I completed the book, I quit the job that I had. I quit my job and I went off to find my fortune, and I was motivated. That's how I knew it sunk in, and I was making some pretty damn good money. But I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try my stint at driving a cab, or cutting hair, or doing something that is commission based, because I had been in sales for years, and I left the sales job. I was a sales supervisor at that point, in a call center. But I did real sales, like sold cars, you name it, fucking life insurance to government employees, vacuum cleaners, security systems, all of which I made very, very good money. I was sold in my early 20s. I think I was 21 when a guy said, wow, you have a dynamic person. I think I was working a part-time job. I put myself through school. I was working a part-time job in like a variety shop. He's like, you got a hell of a personality. You need to go in sales. Sales. You know what I mean? I was working that job. I was working at KFC, anything to kind of, help pay the tuition. And, I was working that job during the day and like KFC at night, closing down. And I'm like, hey, I got food out of it and a paycheck and an education. So I'm like, whatever it took. So I'm like, okay, sales. And my first sales job was at Circuit City, and I'm a musician. I went into the audio department. I was selling stereo equipment. I got to make thousands of dollars a paycheck and we started during Christmas time. I'll never forget this. We opened the Golden Ring Mall in Baltimore, Circuit City. I was one of the people that opened that store. And yeah, sold stereo equipment. I got to go in the sound room and blast Cerwin Vega speakers with things like Guns N' Roses. From Guns N' Roses to Sade, I blasted it all. And I sold a lot of speakers and a lot of receivers and a lot of CD players. That was when CD players first came out. And yeah, I took his advice. And that was, I'll never forget, my very first check was $2,000. And I'm like, holy shit, 2 G's, really? And I was like 20. And I was like, whoa, never went into if every job I've had since, if I've worked, has been commission based. Some of it, I went in corporate America and I got a nice base of like 20 or 30K, but it had to have commission with it. I never, ever, ever from that point on in my life worked any job that did not have either was straight commission, where it was all on me, in which case I worked even harder and made more money, or it had some type of flat salary and had a commission based on that. Dude, why do you think I'm sitting here now pushing my intros? Don't get caught up in the DZ. I'm telling you, hooked up with the right one. If you talking about quitting your job, you will never find me talking you out of that. I've walked the path that you're about to walk on, and I never looked back since. Okay. Jen and I started a business with all of that stuff that I had in my early life. That's between that and the experience she had. That's why we never quit. We had so much corporate experience and I had so much sales experience by that time that we took all of that and made it work in our business. So that's why I'm not afraid to not have a job ever, because there's always something you can do. If you're good at making money, trading, damn it, do it. Don't cheat yourself, because you will never, ever, ever forget that. And you are young enough. Do it now. Don't wait till later in life to do it. While you're inspired to do it, do it. It does work. All you got to do is have that faith that you can get by. Don't wait till the right moment. And I know you're trying to save up a certain amount, but don't wait until the exact right moment, because guess what? That never comes. You just got to leap, brother. You got to leap. You got to leap without the safety net. And no, it's just like sinking or swimming. When somebody throws you in the deep end of the pool, either your ass is going to drown or you're going to learn how to freaking swim. Okay, I learned how to swim. And I know you well enough at this point, even just through what we've done, to know that you're not going to sink if you take that leap. Do it when you plan to do it, but don't when it gets to that point that you said you wanted to do. If there is a set point, don't put it off. I wouldn't even wait till next year, to be honest with you. If you got that much confidence in your abilities, do that shit now. Fuck it. Quit, man. Save up a couple of paychecks and do it. That's what I did. Haven't looked back since.
Teaching it to readers who came to me perplexed by their own VCR questions. How do I apply for a job? Or how do I tell this guy I want to be his girlfriend? And the like. During the first couple of years I worked for myself, entire weeks would go by without my accomplishing much, for no other reason than that I was anxious and stressed about what I had to do, and it was too easy to put everything off. I quickly learned, though,
a commission sales job, a straight commission sales job, is the easiest way to learn how to run a business, because what you're doing in that respect is running a business. You don't have a brick and mortar. The other people own the brick and mortar that you're working in, but your income is solely, you're responsible for your income. If you don't make shit, they don't give you nothing. So it's like when you go out on the road and you're, in the field, you have to make your own money. They give you the product and everything. But when Jen and I did it, we literally came up with our own product. It was an idea that we had that we sold, and it worked. But that was because I knew it would work, because I knew how to sell people. So it was like, once you gain that experience and you're working on your own, and you're already working on your own because you're working from home. So that shows right there that you're self-motivated. You've already got what it takes. So a lot of people can't do this. Like this coming on here, 11:30, 11:45 every day. That's training. I'm used to somebody not telling me what to do every minute of every day and doing what I need to do to make it happen. So yeah, I'm stoked about next week, man. I'm stoked this week. I can't wait. It's gonna be awesome. And Secrets of a Millionaire Mind trains you to think that way. You know, I was already thinking that way, but that book just took it to a whole nother level.
So that forcing myself to do something, even the most menial of tasks, quickly made the larger tasks seem much easier. If I had to redesign an entire website, I'd force myself to sit down and would say, okay, design the header right now. But after the header was done, I'd find myself moving on to other parts of the site. And before I knew it, energized and engaged in the project. The author Tim Ferriss relates a story he once heard about a novelist who had written over 70 novels.
Gotcha, I'm sending it.
Someone asked the novelist how he was able to write so consistently and remain inspired and motivated. He replied, 200 crappy words per day. That's it. The idea was that if he forced himself to write 200 crappy words, more often than not, the act of writing would inspire him, and before he knew it, he'd have thousands of words down on the page. If we follow the do something principle, failure feels unimportant. When the standard of success becomes merely acting, when any result is regarded as progress and important, when inspiration is seen as a reward rather than a prerequisite, we propel ourselves ahead. We feel free to fail, and that failure moves us forward. It will not only helps us overcome procrastination, but also the process by which we adopt new values. If you're in the midst of an existential shitstorm and everything feels meaningless, if all the ways you used to measure yourself have come up short and you have no idea what's next, if you know that you've been hurting yourself chasing false dreams, or if you know that there's some better metric you should be measuring yourself with, but you don't know how, the answer is the same. Do something. That something can be the smallest viable action to us. It can be anything. Recognize that you've been an entitled prick in all of your relationships and want to start developing more compassion for others. Do something. Start simple. Make it a goal to listen to someone's problem and give some of your time to helping that person. Just do it once. Or promise yourself that you will assume that you are the root of your problems next time you get upset. Just try on the idea how it feels. That's often all that's necessary to get the snowball rolling. The action needed to inspire the motivation to keep going. You can become your own source of inspiration. You can become your own source of motivation.
Facts.
Action is always within reach. And with simply doing something as your only metric for success, well, then even failure pushes you forward. Chapter 8. The importance of saying no.
Before we get started with that, I want to welcome to the party panel, Brother DZ. What's up, my brother?
What's going on, Sister JJ? How you doing? Happy
I'm
Thanksgiving.
doing good.
Oh no, thank you so much for bringing me on, man. You're really cooking today, as always, and I totally agree with everything you said before. I'm
I
glad.
did it, man. When you said you were looking to quit your job next year, I'm like, okay, yeah, he's definitely somebody that I'm cool associating with because he thinks like me. I've done that. I've been living that life for like almost 15 years now.
Yeah, I thought me getting the job, because as you know, I'm an engineer and everything. I work from
Yeah.
home, so I thought me getting a job that pays me, that sort of money was going to make any sort of differences in my life, but I noticed that I was still, working, as long as I was, as long as I'm in corporate America, you know,
You're still a slave.
you're still enslaved. Exactly. You know what I mean? So that's when I actually had to, like, find ways to, make money and everything, see how I can be independent, because I've always had that mindset, but I always, like, stopped, from doing
Right.
it. My
Right.
parents and everything, they taught us to go to college, get a degree, get that job that you want and everything. I've always been unconventional. I never really went to college. I went to college, but I never really got my degree. I always was like, you know what, man, let me just work hard and everything, get some certifications to get my.
I put myself through a certification school. I'm
Yeah,
not college educated either. But
yeah,
the oddly enough,
yeah,
and this is a little bit of a freaky fact about me, and in third grade, my mom didn't let them skip me. She wanted me to be quote unquote normal, whatever that is.
yeah,
But
yeah.
in third grade, I read so much that I was diagnosed as being on a college reading level in third grade.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
So yeah, I know. And listen, I can't see, but what am I doing? I'm listening to an audiobook. I constantly feed my brain
yeah,
constantly all the time. And it's, when you showed me Restream, it was all I could do to just get in the inner workings of it and just play with it. You
yeah,
know what I mean? My
yeah.
brain, oh, dude, whatever you give me, I'm going to tackle it. That's how I am. So it's like when I hear that in somebody else, I latch on to that person because that's the person that I want to teach and learn from.
You know,
You
from
know what I mean?
exactly,
So yeah,
exactly. No, I really commend you for that. That's why me and you we identify so much with each other
yeah,
because we're able to really we do have that ruling class mentality. We don't like relying on people so much to the point where we're not even like we always want to do something with our hands. And, I think that's something that people can learn, and for me, ever since I started in corporate America, I've always wanted to leave and, obviously found the options trading, which we'll get into next week, as you said, and we'll start, really showing people how we can make that sort of passive income. That way everyone can can leave their job because there's always options. Your options don't need to be only in corporate the corporate world in corporate
that is
America.
the one thing that I have not delved into that I have wanted to delve into because I knew if I sunk my teeth into it that I
Mhm.
would take advantage of it and probably do quite well at it. So
Yeah,
I'm excited about that.
yeah,
You know what? And Jen, that's one of the reasons that Jen and I get along so well because she is also that type of dog. She
hmm
goes after what she wants big time from me to
yeah.
everything I've seen her do since then.
Oh man,
That really shocked me. You know what I mean? Normally I'm the aggressor when it comes to that, but yeah, she came hard. So I'm like, hey, what's up? But that's a whole nother story of another day. But it's like, I'm telling you, man, and I tell her that I woke up this morning and I had the weirdest dream because you know how into the Matrix I am, right?
hmm
So I had this dream that I was hanging out with Morpheus and Neo. And
Wow.
yeah, and in this dream, and I think this is metaphoric of what's about to happen. In
hmm
this dream, I feel like you're Morpheus. And
Yeah,
I feel like in this dream, um, I went, we were, you know how Neo in Matrix Reloaded taught himself how to fly?
yeah,
Okay. So we were all flying. It wasn't just me. It was me, Morpheus, and Neo. And I feel like it's metamorphic in my life because I feel like you're going to be the Neo with this whole, hey, let me open this world up to you.
yeah.
And
Definitely, definitely.
yeah, man. And it's like I'm going to end up being Neo and taking it and doing some crazy shit
With,
with it.
with it, yeah, yeah. Oh man,
And
I
we're
tell
all
you.
going to benefit from that. You know what I mean?
Dude, sis, I was telling my boy, I was like, you've never met JJ before. You'll see, like, because I was telling him your mind is like, it's amazing. Like, you know how to like, there's some things that you do. I'm like, yo, how do you do it? Especially with the what you've been dealt with recently. You know what I mean, and
Yeah.
what you do, and it's crazy because your people that other things that other challenges that you do go through that you went through and that you do go through, other people may see that as a weakness, but you took those health challenges and you use that as a power, and to
Yeah.
your advantage, and now you're this, it's like you're this if there was a superhero that used whatever challenges that to build them up and make them stronger, that will be you. And that is super
Aw,
powerful, you know what I mean?
that's
Because
so crazy. Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah, I mean, it's really, I see you like that, you know what I mean? Because a
They
lot of
said
people
the
are giving,
same thing, man. It's so
huh,
crazy. It's like,
yeah.
oh, my ego is being really fed right now. But
No, but it's
like
true.
he says the same thing, and it's like it's so
Yeah,
weird because
yeah.
the video editing, it I think I started doing that this time last year, and I started doing that I think as a challenge because it takes intense sight and being able to see that, but a lot of times, you'd be surprised how much if you just go off a feeling. And
Hmm.
I use how I feel about something to create, not necessarily what I'm looking at. I see a video before it's even made. And all I do is I find apps that do things to make me create the vision I've already seen. So it's like, it's so
That's
crazy the
powerful.
creation process. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? It's like
yeah.
I work backwards. I see the completed video in my head first, and I'm like, okay, how do I make that happen? Then I'll
Hmm.
watch YouTube and somebody will teach you an app, and I'll go play with the app and learn it for myself. Oh, this
Hmm.
is what they said. Oh, this is what, okay, yeah, there's that button, and learn it. And next thing you know, I'm making I'm doing another thing with a video. I'm creating I've got another effect that I can do, adding
Hmm.
on, adding on. And
Hmm.
it's like, holy shit, there's so much that you can do with this stuff. So,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
With,
drinking coffee that doesn't have caffeine in it, and I'm talking so fast.
oh man, it's
I
good.
mean,
I
there
love
is
it.
some caffeine in decaf, but Jesus, man.
Exactly. But I think it's great because even when we do get into the trading, because the fact that you're so your attention span is so great and you're able to see, like, I think you'll be able to catch the dips, you'll be able to catch that you to learn so much about, because though there, with trading there are charts and all that, but it doesn't get too complex, but you'll
Dude,
be,
I know what you mean by that already. My brain capture
yeah,
dips. You see, as
exactly.
soon as something drops, okay, it's time to buy.
Buy low, and your entry points and everything.
Yeah,
And then you write it up and everything. You make your money, or if you want to cash the highest, and then make and see that. And if you're sensing or looking at a downward trend, you can obviously make money on the downward trend as well. That's what a lot of people don't know. That they think that, all the money you make is upward trend, but you also make them some money, a lot of money on the downward trend as well. So,
absolutely.
which we're going to cover on Monday. But my gist is, in a nutshell, really, I think it's important um, that this year really taught me, especially the pandemic. I think the pandemic was, even though it was a time of heartache for a lot of people, it was a blessing in disguise for me
Us
personally.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember just working from home and everything, and seeing like, wow, I can do something with my time, and what can I do with my time? And then that's when I had one of my homies who was actually into trading and everything, and he
Hmm.
told me you can just start trading stocks and everything and how it goes. So I started investing in some stocks when I started, and I was like, you know what, let's see how that goes, and
Right.
was making some money here and there and everything. And then I found other ways to make money. I found options trading, and everything, and I was reading up on it, watching videos, and people were talking like, yo, you can make money on options trading. You can lose money as well, but you can make a great sizable return instead of just having a only your portfolio only having a long-term stocks your portfolio. So I was like, okay, let me get into it. And that's when I started really educating myself and getting into the options trading. I started making a passive income right there, like that. So for me, anybody can do that. But the pandemic definitely taught me that working in corporate America, especially with the offices closing, people losing their jobs and everything,
Yeah.
there a lot of alternatives, and the best alternative will be to have your own business. Come on, we're living in the 21st century, in the technological age right now. Not
Yeah.
only trading or whatever, but just like you talk about all the time, you can do DoorDash, you can do Uber Eats, you can do Uber, you can do Lyft, you can have multiple streams of income and pull more than like $4,000 a month or 2,000
Yeah, but without going into anybody's office and checking any type of time clock.
without doing any of that, because you're only getting a set of income, right? You're only getting, no matter whether you're getting paid 100K a year, 200K, 300K a year through through an office. But how about you control your own income, and you
Right.
don't, and the best thing, what people don't realize is that, no, regardless of whether you're making 300K or 100K a year at a with a company, um somebody, you still have to answer to someone. The
Thank
best
you.
thing, the best freedom, the best peace of mind is when you don't have to answer to someone, regardless of how much you're making,
You
whether
can
it's,
make that same 300K sitting on an island.
yeah, exactly, with your computer right there, done, doing internet, doing your thing, done, get out, and you do the same thing again. You can make that same money sitting in an island, just like you said. So it's like, but people have to open their eyes. People have to be open minded. People have to see.
People have to grow a set.
Grow a set.
Okay. I think people's eyes are open. They just need to grow a set and jump off that
Get out.
cliff.
Yep. Yep. Oh, sis, you said it. You're PC about it, man. You're not PC about it. I like that. That's the truth, sis. I mean, it's not hard to see. Everything is out there. You know what I mean? But you're right. People are not going to say. People are, reluctant to do that. We all go through it. I go through it and everything. But this year, I was like, man, I'm starting somewhere. I did option trading. I told myself next year I'm gonna get out. Get some money for a few months.
I'm gonna
Uh,
hold you to it.
yeah,
Don't
yeah,
be an 80 percenter. You know the 80-20 rule?
yeah,
Okay, don't be an 80 percenter.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Gotta go
I
through,
mean, how old are you again?
28. Yeah,
You're 48.
28.
Oh,
28.
okay. I'm like, okay, here's the deal, right?
Yeah.
Set it, dude. By 30, no, do not still be working for somebody at 30,
Oh
DC.
yeah. 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 I made that promise to myself. I'm not working for anyone by next year, man. I will be 29 next year.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
do
be
it, brother.
anybody else, because I've seen a lot of people being in that sort of mentality and that sort of matrix that we call it, and they are not happy at all. You know what I mean? They are not happy at all, and a lot of people proclaim to be that such people, but I mean, we've seen how they live. You know what I mean? And for me, it's staying true to my word, staying true to our word, and everything, and because that's what's gonna really make me feel better, giving me that peace of mind. It's never a great thing to work for somebody else, because when you are in such an environment, just like the the title of this stream and this book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, you start giving a fuck a lot about what people say about you. And
Hmm.
that high school 2.0 environment is starts from the workplace at the end of the day. So people take that mentality there, and then they start, going around and obviously influencing other people, just like the recent experience that we've been through. That's that high school 2.0 mentality, and that all starts from corporate America. Once you go into that office environment, there's a lot of drama that people want to get involved, because people cannot occupy themselves with,
Yeah.
just work. Yeah,
Wanting to be liked and wanting to be approved of is a natural human trait, but it's also a trait that can be detrimental to your growth.
it is.
If you try to fit inside of what somebody else's bubble is of what you should be, you don't realize who you are.
It is
And
a
if you know who you are and still allow yourself to be put into someone else's bubble, sooner or later, if you're a forward thinker like we are, you will break free of that bubble
break through that
just
bubble.
as we did. You know, you will not look at Neo. He was living in the matrix. He was controlled. He was told what to do, when to do it. Oh, Mr. Anderson, you can't get your ass in here on time. You're going to go find yourself another job. You could see the look on his face in that movie like, fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
I could shut this place down with one virus. He had that look on his face.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it's like in the back of his mind, he was already ready to get free, but
Yeah.
he just needed that catalyst. And
Yeah.
that catalyst was Morpheus. Morpheus came in and said, hey, I know who you are. I know how you think. And we need you. We need you on this side.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's what I feel like I'm being pulled towards, my brother. And you and I are going to do it. We're going to get this options
We're
trading.
doing
We're going
this.
to free
Yeah.
some people.
Let's get free some people, man, because it's what's the point of keeping all that to ourselves and not, providing that sort of soul food, as I always call it, to people because they can use that and truly nourish themselves. You know what I mean? And I think it's
Absolutely.
very important because I think the best thing. A lot of people will be very happy. I'm not saying 100%, but I would say 99.9999% of people would be very happy.
Anybody that we touch is going to learn. They're going to be happy.
Yeah, just by learning, gain that sort of financial freedom, because that brings you a peace of mind knowing that you're able to. Because guess what? Having your own business or having making passive income without you leaving your home or anything like that, having your own business, it allows you to do the things that you want to do. You
Yeah.
know, they allows you to
Gives you
um,
freedom.
it gives you freedom to take care of yourself. You know what I mean? Sleep
And to
all you
help others.
help
You know what I'm
others.
saying? I hate seeing family, friends struggle and not be in a position to help them out when I
Yep.
can. You know what I'm saying? And if there's an overabundance, then hey, if you're already the type of person that's going to help,
Mhm.
and the cool thing is we've also had training where people have tried to take advantage of that. And we
Mhm.
see that coming from a mile away. So it's not also going to be the type of situation where, oh, now you've got money, oh, I can leech off of you. No, you're not going to leech.
Yeah.
Okay, so no, that's not going to happen either. But there will be people that will benefit from what we're going to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you mentioned a great point. Not how you don't have to, because when you make money and all that, then a lot of people come to you when they're a lot. You will
Yeah, like you're an ATM.
an ATM, exactly. You'll have to say no to a lot of people that because not everyone deserves your help. Not everybody deserves your help. Only the people that truly have been there for you and people that obviously are not, that don't have the tendency to take advantage of you. Can you help those people? You know what I mean? Too many times have we fallen into the trap of you know, helping some people that end up, obviously hurting us at the end of the day, and people that are undeserving of that help. You know what I mean? Because we're so kind-hearted naturally. You know what I mean? So because of that, people can see that. You know what I mean? So they feel like they can you know um, take advantage of that kindness and everything, and before you know it, they run away with it and all that, and then they end up hurting you. So
And that's why you move on.
that's why
So
you move on. Exactly. Yeah. So it's essential to, but I think really what I wanted to emphasize on honestly is, having that sort of financial freedom allows you to take care of yourself, your health, and everything. And because when working in corporate America, you have to get out there, work what 8 to 12 hours a day, come back and everything. 8 to 12 hours a day, you're stressed out pretty much.
yeah.
That is not normal. You know what I mean? That's why a lot of people in this country and worldwide, but especially here, we obesity is there, and there's the issue of health and high blood pressure, diabetes, and all that. That is not because of what we eat. That's not only what we eat, but basically the stress levels that we have, the high stress levels that we
Fact.
you know what I mean? Because going to work every single day and punching in and all that, that shit stresses out a lot of people. People have to change that mindset. That's why it's so encouraging. Um, it's encouraged to get your own business, or get your own income, because you end up cutting a lot of those things, a lot of those stress levels, and not having to think about answering to someone, and you end up focusing on yourself. It's a ripple effect, because guess what? You make your own income, you can get your own things. You know what I
Right.
mean? You're forced to get your own things. You know what I mean? Then you end up what? Buying your own food or planting your own food. You end up having a ruling class mentality. It's more than having your own money. Now you're able to invest in your health, in your food. You know what's going in and out of your bank. You know what's going in and out of your body. That's really what matters. You know how to really manage your time properly. You're able to get your sleep that you deserve. You're able to wake up and do your thing. Whether you want to go out for a walk, you know what I mean? You're able to see, to control the people that are coming into your life, what I mean, and all that. So it's more than passive income. Passive income allows you to do those things. That's why I'm such a big proponent, supporter of that. Yeah.
Cool beans.
2009, I gathered up all my possessions, sold them or put them into storage, left my apartment, and set off for Latin America. By this time, my little dating advice blog traffic, and I was actually making a modest amount of money selling PDFs and courses online. I planned on spending much of the next few years living abroad, experiencing new cultures, and taking advantage of the lower cost of living in a number of developing countries in Asia and Latin America to build my business further. It was the digital nomad dream, and as a 25-year-old adventure seeker, it was exactly what I wanted out of life. But as sexy and heroic as my plan sounded, not all of the values driving me to this nomadic lifestyle were ones. I had some admirable values going on: a thirst to see the world, a curiosity for people and culture, some old-fashioned adventure seeking. But there also existed a faint outline of shame underlying everything else. At the time, I was hardly aware of it, but if I was completely honest with myself, I knew there was a screwed up value lurking there, somewhere beneath the surface. I couldn't see it, but in quiet moments when I was completely honest with myself, I could feel it. Along with the entitlement of my early 20s, the real traumatic shit of my teenage years had left me with a nice bundle of commitment issues. I had spent the past few years overcompensating for the inadequacy and social anxiety of my teenage years, and as a result, I felt like I could meet anybody I wanted, be friends with anybody I wanted, love anybody I wanted, have sex with anybody I wanted. So why would I ever commit to a single person, or even a single social group, or single city, country, or culture? If I could experience everything equally, then I should experience them all equally, right? Armed with this grandiose sense of connectivity to the world, I bounced back and forth across countries and oceans in a game of global hopscotch that lasted over 5 years. I visited 55 countries, made dozens of friends, and found myself in the arms of a number of lovers, all of whom were quickly replaced, and some of whom who were already forgotten by the next flight to the next country. It was a strange life, replete with fantastic, horizon-breaching experiences, as well as superficial highs designed to numb my underlying pain. It seemed both so profound, yet so meaningless at the same time, and still does. Some of my greatest life-led character-defining moments came on the road during this period, but some of the biggest wastes of time and energy came during this period as well. Now, I live in New York. I have a house and furniture and an electric bill and a wife. None of it is particularly glamorous or exciting, and I like it that way. Because after all the years of excitement, the biggest lesson I took from my adventuring was this: absolute freedom by itself means nothing. Freedom grants the opportunity for greater meaning, but by itself there is nothing necessarily meaningful about it. Ultimately, The only way to achieve meaning and a sense of importance in one's life is through a rejection of alternatives, a narrowing of freedom, a choice commitment to one place, one belief, or gulp, one person. This realization came to me slowly over the course of my years traveling. As with most excesses in life, you have to drown yourself in them to realize that they don't make you happy. Such was traveling with me. As I drowned in my 53rd, 54th, 55th country, I began to understand that while all of my experiences were exciting and great, few of them would have any lasting significance. Whereas my friends back home were settling down into marriages, buying houses, and giving their time to interesting companies or political causes, I was floundering from one high to the next. In 2011, I traveled to St. Petersburg, Russia. The food sucked. The weather sucked. Snow in May? Are you fucking kidding me? My apartment sucked. Nothing worked. Everything was overpriced. The people were rude and smelled funny. Nobody smiled and everyone drank too much. Yet I loved it. It was one of my favorite trips. There's a bluntness to Russian culture that generally rubs Westerners the wrong way. Gone are the fake niceties and verbal webs of politeness. You don't smile at strangers or pretend to like anything you don't. In Russia, if something is stupid, you say it's stupid. If someone is being an asshole, you tell him he's being an asshole. If you really like someone and are having a great time, you tell her that you like her and are having a great time. It doesn't matter if this person is your friend, a stranger, or someone you met 5 minutes ago on the street. The first week, I found all of this really uncomfortable. I went on a coffee date with a Russian girl, and within 3 minutes of sitting down, she looked at me funny and told me that what I just said was stupid. I nearly choked on my drink. There was nothing combative about the way she said it. It was spoken as if it were some mundane fact, like the quality of the weather that day or her shoe size. But I was still shocked. After all, in the West, such outspokenness is seen as highly offensive, especially from someone you just met. But it went on like this with everyone. Everyone came across as rude all the time, and as a result, my Western coddled mind felt attacked on all sides. Nagging insecurities began to surface in situations where they hadn't existed in years. But as the weeks wore on, I got used to the Russian frankness, much as I did the midnight sunsets and the vodka that went down like ice water. And then I started appreciating it for what it really was: unadulterated expression, honesty in the truest sense of the word, communication with no conditions, no strings attached, no ulterior motive, no sales job, no desperate attempt to be liked. Somehow, after years of travel, it was in perhaps the most un-American of places where I first experienced a particular flavor of freedom, the ability to say whatever I thought or felt without fear of repercussion. It was a strange form of liberation through accepting rejection. And as someone who had been starved of this kind of blunt expression most of his life, first by an emotionally repressed family life, then later by a meticulously constructed false display of confidence, I got drunk on it like it was the finest damn vodka I'd ever had. The month I spent in St. Petersburg went by in a blur, and by the end, I didn't want to leave. Travel is a fantastic self-development tool because it extricates you from the values of your culture and shows you that another society can live with entirely different values and still function and not hate themselves. This exposure to different cultural values and metrics then forces you to re-examine what seems obvious in your own life and to consider that perhaps it's not necessarily the best. In this case, Russia had me re-examining the bullshitty, fake nice communication that is so common in Anglo culture, and asking myself if this wasn't somehow making us more insecure around each other and worse at intimacy. I remember discussing this dynamic with my Russian teacher one day, and he had an interesting theory. Having lived under communism for so many generations with little to no economic opportunity and caged by a culture of fear, Russian society found the most valuable currency to be trust. And trust, you have to be honest. That means when things suck, you say so openly and without apology. People's displays of unpleasant honesty were rewarded for the simple fact that they were necessary for survival. You had to know whom you could rely on and whom you couldn't. And you needed to know. But in the free West, my Russian teacher continued, existed an abundance of economic opportunity. so much economic opportunity that it became far more valuable to present yourself in a certain way, even if it was false, than to actually be. Trust lost its value. Appearances and salesmanship became more advantageous forms of expression. Knowing a lot of people superficially was more beneficial than knowing a few people closely. This is why it became the norm in Western cultures to smile and say polite things even when you don't feel like it, to tell little white lies and agree with someone whom you don't actually agree with. This is why people learn to pretend to be friends with people they don't actually like, to buy things they don't actually want. The economic system promotes such deception. The downside of this is that you never know in the West if you can completely trust the person you're talking to. Sometimes this is even among good friends or family members. There is such pressure in the West to be likable that people often figure their entire personality depending on the person they're dealing with. Rejection makes your life better. As an extension of our positivity/consumer culture, many of us have been indoctrinated with the belief that we should try to be as inherently accepting and affirmative as possible. The cornerstone of many of the so-called positive thinking books. Open yourself up to opportunities. Be accepting. Say yes to everything and everyone, and so on. But we need to reject something. Otherwise, we stand for nothing. If nothing is better or more desirable than anything else, then we are empty and our life is meaningless. We are without values and therefore live our life without any purpose. The avoidance of rejection, both giving and receiving it, is often sold to us as a way to make ourselves feel better. But avoiding rejection gives us short-term pleasure by making us restless and directionless in the long term. To truly appreciate something, you must confine yourself to it. There's a certain level of joy and meaning that you reach in life only when you've spent decades investing in a single relationship, a single craft, a single career. And you cannot achieve those decades of investment without rejecting the alternatives. The act of choosing a value for yourself requires rejecting alternative values. If I choose to make my marriage the most important part of my life, that means I'm probably choosing to make my cocaine-fueled hooker orgies an important part of my life. If I'm choosing to judge myself based on my ability to have open and accepting friendships, that means I'm rejecting trashing my friends behind their backs. These are all healthy decisions, yet they require rejection at every turn. The point is this: we all must give a fuck about something in order to value something. And to value something, we must reject what is not that something. To value X, we must reject non-X. That rejection is an inherent and necessary part of maintaining our values, and therefore our identity. We are defined by what we choose to reject. And if we reject nothing, perhaps in fear of being rejected by something ourselves, we essentially have no identity at all. The desire to avoid rejection at all costs, to avoid confrontation and conflict, the desire to attempt to accept everything equally and to make everything cohere and harmonize, is a deep and subtle form of entitlement. Entitled people, because they feel as though they deserve to feel great all the time, avoid rejecting anything because doing so might make them or someone else feel bad. And because they refuse to reject anything, they live a valueless, pleasure-driven, and self-absorbed life. All they give a fuck about is sustaining the high a little bit longer, to avoid the inevitable failures of their life, to pretend the suffering away. Rejection is an important and crucial life skill. Nobody wants to be stuck in a relationship that isn't making them happy. Nobody wants to be stuck in a business doing work they hate and don't believe in. Nobody wants to feel that they can't say what they really mean. Yet people choose these things all the time. Honesty is a natural human craving. But part of having honesty in our lives is becoming comfortable with saying and hearing the word no. In this way, rejection actually makes our relationships better and our emotional lives healthier. Boundaries. Once upon a time, there were two youngsters, a boy and a girl. Their families hated each other, but the boy snuck into a party hosted by the girl's family because he's kind of a dick. The girl sees the boy, and Angel sings so sweetly to her lady parts that she instantly falls in love. Just like that. And so he sneaks into her garden, and they decide to get married the next freaking day because, that's totally practical, especially when your parents want to murder each other. Jump ahead a few days. Their families find out about the marriage and throw a shit fit. Mercutio dies. The girl is so upset that she drinks a potion that will put her to sleep for 2 days. But unfortunately, the young couple hasn't learned the ins and outs of good marital communication yet. And the young girl totally forgets to mention something about a new husband. The young man therefore mistakes his new wife's self-induced coma for suicide. He then totally loses his marbles and he commits suicide, thinking he's going to be with afterlife or some shit. But then she wakes up from her 2-day coma only to learn that her new husband has committed suicide. So she has the exact same idea and kills herself too. The end. Romeo and Juliet is synonymous with romance in our culture today. It is seen as the love story in English-speaking culture, an emotional ideal to live up to. Yet, when you really get down to what happens in the story, these kids are absolutely out of their fucking minds. And they just killed themselves to prove it. It's suspected by many scholars that Shakespeare wrote Romeo and Juliet not to celebrate it, satirize it, to show how absolutely he didn't mean for the play to be a glorification of love. In fact, he meant it to be the opposite. A big flashing neon sign blinking "Keep Out" with police tape around it saying "Do not cross." For most of human history, romantic love was not. In fact, up until the mid-19th century or so, love was seen as unnecessary and potentially dangerous psychological impediment to the more important things in life. You know, like farming well and or marrying a guy with a lot of sheep. Young people were often forcibly steered clear of their romantic passions in favor of practical economic marriages that would yield for both them and their families. But today, we all get brain boners for this kind of batshit crazy love. It dominates our culture. And the more dramatic, whether it's Ben Affleck working to destroy an asteroid to save the Earth for the girl he loves, or Mel Gibson murdering hundreds of Englishmen and fantasizing about his raped and murdered wife while being tortured to death, or that elven chick giving her immortality to be with Aragorn in Lord of the Rings, or stupid romantic comedies where Jimmy Fallon forgoes his Red Sox playoff tickets because Drew Barrymore has, like, needs or something. This sort of romantic love were cocaine, then as a culture, we'd all be like Tony Montana in Scarface, burying our faces in a fucking mountain of it, screaming, "Say hello to my little friend." The problem is that we're finding out that romantic love is kind of like cocaine, like frighteningly similar to cocaine, like stimulates the exact same parts of your brain as cocaine, like gets you high and makes you feel good for a while, but also creates as many problems as it solves, as does cocaine. Most elements of romantic love that we pursue, the dramatic and dizzyingly emotional displays of affection, the topsy-turvy ups and downs, aren't healthy, genuine displays of love. In fact, they're often just another form of entitlement playing out through people's relationships. I know, that makes me sound like such a downer. Seriously, what kind of guy shits on romantic love? But hear me out. The truth is, there are healthy forms of love and unhealthy forms of love. Unhealthy love is based on two people trying to escape their problems through their emotions for each other. In other words, they're using each other as an escape. Healthy love is based on two people acknowledging and addressing their own problems with each other's support. The difference between a healthy and an unhealthy relationship comes down to two things. One, how well each person in the relationship accepts responsibility. And two, the willingness of each person to both reject and be rejected by their partner. Anywhere there is an unhealthy or toxic relationship, there will be a poor and porous sense of responsibility on both sides, and there will be an inability to give and or receive rejection. Wherever there is a healthy and loving relationship, there will be clear boundaries between the two people and their values, and there will be an open avenue of giving and receiving rejection when necessary. By boundaries, I mean the delineation between two people's responsibilities for their own problems. People in a healthy relationship with strong boundaries will take responsibility for their own values and problems, and not take responsibility for their partner's values and problems. People in a toxic relationship with poor or no boundaries will regularly avoid responsibility for their own problems and or take responsibility for their partner's problems. What do poor boundaries look like? Here are some examples. "You're with your friends without me. You know how jealous I get? You have to stay home with me. My coworkers are idiots. They always make me late to meetings because I have to tell them how to do their jobs. I can't believe you made me feel so stupid in front of my own sister. Never disagree with me in front of her again. I'd love to take that job in Milwaukee, but my mother would never forgive me for moving so far away. I can date you, but can you not tell my friend Cindy? She gets really insecure when I have a boyfriend and she doesn't. In each scenario, the person is either taking responsibility for problems or emotions that are not theirs, or demanding that someone else take responsibility for their problems or emotions. In general, entitled people fall into one of two traps in their relationships. Either they expect other people to take responsibility for their problems. I wanted a nice, relaxing weekend at home. You should have known that and canceled your plans. Or they take on too much responsibility for other people's problems. She just lost her job again, but it's probably my fault because I wasn't as supportive of her as I could have been. I'll rewrite her resume tomorrow. Entitled people adopt these strategies in relationships, as with everything, to help avoid accepting responsibility for their own problems. As a result, their relationships are fragile and fake, products of avoiding inner pain rather than embracing a genuine appreciation and adoration of their partner. This goes not just for romantic relationships, by the way, but also for family relationships and friendships. An overbearing mother may take responsibility for every problem in their children's lives. Her own entitlement then encourages an entitlement in her children, as they grow up to believe other people should always be responsible for their problems. This is why the problems in your romantic relationships always eerily resemble the problems in your parents' relationship. When you have murky areas of responsibility for your emotions and actions, areas where it's unclear who is responsible for what, whose fault is what, why you're doing what you're doing, you never develop strong values for yourself. Your only value becomes making your partner happy, or your only value becomes your partner making you happy. This is self-defeating, of course, and relationships characterized by such murkiness usually go down like the Hindenburg, with all the drama and fireworks. People can't solve your problems for you, and they shouldn't try, because that won't make you happy. You can't solve other people's problems for them either, because that likewise won't make them happy. The mark of an unhealthy relationship is two people who try to solve each other's problems in order to feel good about themselves. Rather, a healthy relationship is when two people solve their own problems in order to feel good about each other. The setting of proper boundaries doesn't mean you can't help or support your partner or be helped and supported yourself. You both should support each other, but only because you choose to support and be supported, not because you feel obligated or entitled. Entitled people who blame others for their own emotions and actions do so because they believe that if they constantly paint themselves as victims, eventually someone will come along and save them, and they will receive what they've always wanted. Entitled people take the blame for other people's emotions and actions do so because they believe that if they fix their partner and save him or her, they will receive the love and appreciation they've always wanted. These are of any toxic relationship. The victim saver, the person who starts fires because it makes her feel important, and the person who puts out fires because it makes him feel important. These two types of people are drawn strongly to one another, and they usually end up together. Their pathologies match one another perfectly. Often they've grown up with parents who each exhibit one of these traits as well. So their model for a happy relationship is one based on entitlement and poor boundaries. Sadly, they both fail in meeting the other's actual needs. In fact, their pattern of over-blaming and over-accepting blame perpetuates the entitlement and shitty self-worth that have been keeping them from getting their emotional needs met in the first place. The victim creates more and more problems to solve, not because additional real problems exist, but because it gets her the attention and affection she craves. The saver solves and solves, not because she actually cares about the problems, but because she believes she must fix others' problems in order to deserve attention and affection for herself. In both cases, the intentions are selfish and conditional, and therefore self-sabotaging, and genuine love is rarely experienced. The victim, if he really loved the saver, would say, "Look, this is my problem. You don't have to fix it for me. Just support me while I fix it myself." That would actually be a demonstration of love, taking responsibility for your own problems and not holding your partner responsible for them. If the saver really wanted to save the victim, the saver would say, "Look, you're blaming others for your own problems. Deal with this yourself. And in a sick way, that would actually be a demonstration of love, helping someone solve their own problems. Instead, victims and savers both use each other to achieve emotional highs. It's like an addiction they fulfill in one another. Ironically, when presented with emotionally healthy people to date, they usually feel bored or lack chemistry with them. They pass on emotionally healthy, secure individuals because the secure partner's solid boundaries don't feel exciting enough to stimulate the constant highs necessary in the entitled person. For victims, the hardest thing to do in the world is to hold themselves accountable for their problems. They've spent their whole life believing that others are responsible for their fate. That first step of taking responsibility for themselves is often terrifying. For savers, the hardest thing to do in the world is taking responsibility for other people's problems. They've spent their whole life feeling valued and loved only when they're saving somebody else. So letting go of this need is terrifying to them as well. If you make a sacrifice for someone you care about, it needs to be because you want to, not because you feel obligated or because you fear the consequences of not doing so. If your partner is going to make a sacrifice for you, it needs to be because he or she genuinely wants to, not because you've manipulated the sacrifice through anger or guilt.
That.
Oh man, he's spinning.
It can be difficult for people to recognize the difference between doing of obligation and doing it voluntarily. So here's a litmus test. Ask yourself, if I refused, how would the relationship change? Similarly, ask, if my partner refused something I wanted, how would the relationship change? If the answer is that a refusal would cause a blowout of drama and broken china plates, then that's a bad sign for your relationship. It suggests the relationship is conditional, based on superficial benefits received from one another, rather than on unconditional acceptance of each other, along with each other's problems. People with strong boundaries are not afraid of a temper tantrum, an argument, or getting hurt. People with weak boundaries are terrified of those things and will constantly mold their own behavior to fit the highs and lows of their relational, emotional roller coaster. People with strong boundaries understand that it's unreasonable to expect two people to accommodate each other 100% and fulfill every need the other has. People with strong boundaries understand that they may hurt someone's feelings sometimes, but ultimately they can't determine how other people feel. People with strong boundaries understand that a healthy relationship is not about controlling one another's emotions, but rather about each partner supporting the other in their individual growth and in solving their own problems. It's not about giving a fuck about everything your partner gives a fuck about. It's about giving a fuck about your partner regardless of the fucks he or she gives. That's unconditional love, baby. How to build trust. My wife is one of those women who spend a lot of time in front of the mirror. She loves to look amazing, and I love for her to look amazing too, obviously. Nights before we go out, she comes after an hour-long makeup / hair / clothes / whatever we're doing there session and asks me how she looks. She's usually gorgeous. Every once in a while, though, she looks bad. She tried to do something new with her hair or decided to wear a pair of some flamboyant fashion designer from Milan thought were avant-garde. Whatever the reason, it just doesn't work. When I tell her this, she usually gets pissed off. As she marches back into the closet or the bathroom to redo everything and make us 30 minutes late, she spouts a bunch of 4-letter words and sometimes even slings a few of them in my direction. Men stereotypically lie in this situation to make their girlfriends or wives happy. But I don't. Why? Honesty in my relationship is more important to me than feeling good all the time. The last person I should ever have to send myself with is the woman I love. Fortunately, I'm married to a woman who agrees and is willing to hear my uncensored thoughts. She calls me out on my bullshit too, of course, which is one of the most important traits she offers me as a partner. Sure, my ego gets bruised sometimes and I bitch and complain and try to argue, but a few hours later I come sulking back and admit that she was right. And holy crap, she makes me a better person, even though I hate hearing it at the time. When our highest priority is to always make ourselves feel good or to always make our partner feel good, then nobody ends up feeling good. And our relationship falls apart without our even knowing it. Without conflict, there can be no trust. Conflict exists to show us who is there for us unconditionally and who is just there for the benefits. Trust's a yes man. If Disappointment Panda were here, he'd tell you that the pain in a relationship is necessary to cement our trust in each other and greater intimacy. For a relationship to be healthy, both people must be willing and able to both say no and hear no. Without that negation, without that occasional rejection, boundaries break down and one person's problems and values come to dominate the others. Conflict is not only normal then, it's absolutely necessary for the maintenance of a healthy relationship. If two people who are close are not able to out their differences openly and vocally, then the relationship is based on manipulation and misrepresentation, and it will slowly become toxic. Trust is the most important ingredient in any relationship, for the simple reason that without trust, the relationship doesn't actually mean anything. A person could tell you that she loves you, wants to be with you, would give up everything for you, but if you don't trust her, you get no benefit from those statements. You don't feel loved until you trust that the love being expressed towards you comes without any special conditions or baggage attached to it. This is what's so destructive about cheating. It's not about the sex. It's about the trust that has been destroyed as a result of the sex. Without trust, the relationship can no longer function. So it's either rebuild the trust or say your goodbyes. I often get emails from people who have been cheated on by their significant other but want to stay with that partner and are wondering how they can trust him or her again. Without trust, they tell me, the relationship has begun to feel like a burden, like a threat that must be monitored and questioned rather than enjoyed. The problem here is most people who get caught cheating apologize and give the "it will never happen again" spiel, and that's that, as if penises fell into various orifices completely by accident. Many cheatees accept this response at face value and don't question the values and fucks given by their partner, pun totally intended. They don't ask themselves whether those values and fucks make their partner a good person to stay with. They're so concerned with holding on to their relationship that they fail to recognize that it's become a black hole consuming their self-respect. If people cheat, it's because something other than the relationship is more important to them. It may be power over others. It may be validation through sex. It may be giving into their own impulses. Whatever it is, it's clear that the cheater's values are not aligned in a way to support a healthy relationship. And if the cheater doesn't admit this or come to terms with it, if he just gives the old "I don't know what I was thinking, I was stressed out and drunk and she was there" response, then he lacks the serious self-awareness necessary to solve any relationship problems. What needs to happen is that cheaters have to start peeling away at their self-awareness onion and figure out what fucked up values cause them to break the trust of the relationship and relationship. They need to, I'm selfish. I care about myself and relationship. To be honest, I don't really respect the relationship much at all. If cheaters can't express shitty values and show that those values have been overridden, then there's no way that they can be trusted. And if they can't be trusted, then the relationship is not going to get better.
Boom. Wow. It's true.
Mm-hmm. That's true, man. Yeah.
True. That is true. So with that being said, I'm going to end today's session on that one. And tomorrow we'll listen to the last hour of it.
Yeah, man. That was a good session, sis. Thanks for bringing me in, man.
Oh, you're so welcome, my brother. You are so welcome.
Yeah, it's been I think it's important that, we learn we remind us of some of those things, you don't have to agree with your partner or friend or whoever, on everything, I think it's just like he said.
Were you asleep? You were sleeping.
Oh, no, I'm not saying man, I'm still.
You sound like you just woke up, dude.
I'm like, yeah, man. They had me work today, man. So I'm like, no ways, man.
Oh, really? They couldn't wait to get you back to work right after Thanksgiving, right? Jen's working too. She's on right now too.
Yeah, man. That was like that shit ain't fair, man. Yeah. But it's so good though. Yeah. But pretty much, yeah, I think it's important that we you know, we it's not it's important that we surround ourselves with friends or significant other or family members that would tell us the truth, nothing but the truth. And because when you surround yourself with yes man, you know what I mean, you start believing in you start pretty much suffocating your own ego, you know.
Yeah, usually the yes man is not somebody who's being honest with you. There's somebody who's just telling you what you want to hear.
Exactly. And we know a lot of situations with people like that, that
Yep,
have yes men around them, and and they only want to hear their own voice, but and all that, so those yes men will don't are not confident enough to tell them exactly when they're wrong and everything. So
absolutely.
I think it's important that we take that advice and apply it to our own lives. You know what I mean? I'm always willing to listen to advice on and everything, and but you're going to have disagreements and everything, and that's okay. You know what I mean? But as long as as we stay humble, and of course, we listen to our own advice as well, but it's good to keep a balance between our own advice by other people that obviously do care about us and all that. Now it's good to differentiate between people that don't mean and don't think about our well-being, and people that think about our
Right.
well-being. That can be a bit difficult, especially through this thing that we call life. But once you get to know yourself as a person, I think it gets easier for you to kind of differentiate between all the bad advice and the good advice that you get from people. So
Yep.
yeah,
And I'm excited about that. Shout out to everybody that was listening today. Those that were in the chat and those that weren't. Shout out to you, Uncle Vern. Thank you. He said it's some good information we're giving out today. So thank you. And thank you for always listening and supporting my brother. I appreciate you so much. Guys, I'm going to wrap this session up for today. DZ, thank you so much, my brother, for coming on
no
and
problem.
always being a blessing on the show. And I can't wait to get into the stuff Monday that we're going to get into. Tomorrow, I'm going to be on at 11:30, guys, with the remainder of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Okay, by Mark Manson. It's the book we've been listening to this week, and it has really helped me get through this week. I don't know about you, DZ.
It did for sure. A lot. Most definitely, man. It did help me go through a lot of what happened this week. So for me, it's like take whatever you learn, man. You get out of it, and you become better and all that. So I hope everyone listen carefully to what Mark Manson had to because there's a lot of hidden gems there, a lot of great gems there that you can use and apply to your own life. So I think it's important. So what's the point of listening if you're not going to
If
um
you're not going to apply it, I
like,
always say knowledge is power only if it's used.
yeah.
And with that being said, guys, have a wonderful day. Shout out to Vegan Knowledge, my baby. Thank you again for the wonderful vegan Thanksgiving that we had yesterday. And with that being said, don't forget to smash that like button on the way out. Share this with friends, family, and all forms of social media, guys. And we're out.
Been listening to the Midday Meltdown Party Over Here with J&J Video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're feeling the vibe, and please share if you care on all forms of social media. You can support the content on this channel by donating to the Cash App link that's been provided in the description of this video. Thanks again for listening. Peace and blessings.